again, and welcome to our session, Leverage the Power of Statistical Accounts and Reporting, Dashboard Tips and Tricks. Our presenters this afternoon will be Chris Kimbrell and Martina Nathan. Chris Kimbrell is an implementation consultant with Quisitive, helping to bring modern solutions to clients. Chris is certified in Sage Intacct and has over 13 years of IT and software experience. Martina has been implementing software systems for over 5 years. She's certified in Sage Intacct and is a senior Intacct implementation consultant for Quisitive ERP applications. And now Chris and Martina, please take it away.
Thank you, Marion. I appreciate it. Again, my name is Chris Kimbrell. I'm a Sage consultant with Quisitive, and today I'll be talking about working with statistical accounts and leveraging those statistical accounts. But we'll walk through what stat accounts are, and then we'll actually go through the process of creating a stat account. We'll create a stat journal, and then we'll set up a recurring statistical entry into a journal. And that way you can see just the process of how we go through these, creating these accounts, and then the efficiency of actually setting up a recurring entry. That way it takes a lot of the workload out. So, and then at the end of the presentation, we'll actually walk through creating a report where we'll leverage some of that statistical data in a financial report. And so, first of all, let's just go through and let's find out what exactly stat accounts are. So a stat account is basically any numeric data in your system that is not financial, okay? And so this could be employee head counts, it could be customer counts, it could be average, maybe sales per customer, or maybe average sales per sales rep, any of that data. We can use that to drive reports and to create new and insightful reports to make you aware of maybe things you didn't know were going on in your day-to-day business operations and help you run a little more efficiently and effectively. So in the past, sometimes this data has been a little tough to come by, a little hard to collect. Maybe you've been dependent upon maybe some departments to send that information to you, and maybe their priorities weren't exactly your priorities, and so a lot of times the data kind of fell by the wayside and it was hard to aggregate together. And so what we're hoping is that you can see in Intacct how quick and easy it can be to actually collect this data and to draw it out to make it useful for your business or your organization. And so what I'm going to do is first we'll walk into actual an instance of Intacct, and we'll show just how we can create these accounts and these journals and a recurring entry. And so here we are in a demo company with Intacct. And what we're going to do first is we're going to come up here into our applications menu. And from there, we'll go to our general ledger, and in the all tab of our general ledger, we'll choose statistical accounts. And here you can see there have already been some created for us. And you can also see that the account number is an alphanumeric account number. And so let's just go through the process of, let's just walk through one from scratch, and then we'll come back and look at these that we've just seen. So here's where you would input your primary account number for your statistical account, and then you give it a title, and then the report type, whether it be for the period or cumulative, and then the status for your account, whether it be active or inactive. And then you have a few other options here, but again, they're optional, not required to fill it out. Now, when you create your statistical account, it's just like any other account, giving it an account number. Once you use it, it's locked in, and it cannot be changed. Any of the other information can be edited later on, but if the account is actually used in a transaction, then that ID or this account number will not be able to change. Now, as a best practice, what we suggest is that when you create statistical accounts, that you use the letter S to begin the account number, particularly if you're using a number for the account. That way it'll give you some differentiation between the rest of your accounts, like your financial accounts. And so when you see them, you'll know exactly the type of account you're looking at, and it also helps when you're filtering out lists or searching for a particular account. So let's go back to one of these that we've already created. And let's go under this employee headcount. Let's just edit that really quickly and look at that. So again, here's your account number, but it can be all alpha characters if you so choose. Another easy and quick way to differentiate from your financial accounts. And then we have our title, our employee headcount, and we have our period, our report type for the period. And then status is active, and they went ahead and we created a quick start category called employee headcount for it. Again, the rest of the information down here below is just optional. And that's it. That's how you create a statistical account. And so now we have this account. Now we need a journal in order to register an entry. And so again, we'll come back to our general ledger. And from here, we'll go to our setup tab. And then our setup tab will come down here under journals, and we'll see statistical, and we'll choose that. And again, we have a list of journals that are already created. Well, let's come down here to our statistical entries journal. Let's edit this one so we can see exactly what we're looking at. Again, you have a symbol, which is again the user or the account ID, I should say. This one we just labeled stat, and the title is statistical entries, and the status is active. Very basic, very straightforward. Now, when you're creating statistical journals, you can create one journal to capture all of your data points or in your data, or you can create a individual journal for each data point. Okay, it's really up to you, a user preference there, whatever makes it easier for you to understand or to keep track. In this case, we're just creating one statistical journal for all of our data points, and so we're just calling this statistical entries. And so we've created an account, we've created a journal, and so now let's go in and actually input input an entry into one of our journals. And so we'll come back here to General Ledger, and we'll come to the All tab. And back to the All tab, we have two options here, well, a few options, but the two that we're going to look at here would be statistical journal entries or recurring statistical. Now, this, if we choose the statistical journal entries option, this is where you would add a manual entry. You would come here, you would choose your number, your journal, you would choose a posting date, the description for what you're doing, and then you would come down here to your entries, and this is where you would select the statistical account or the stat account that you would be using, like an employee head count that we talked about, and put in any required information like location. And the difference here between a statistical account and a regular financial account would be that these accounts have increases and decreases and not debits or credits. Okay, so they don't have to resolve like a normal financial account would. So let's come back in here, and this is fine. This is an easy way to do it, but this is a manual way to do it. Let's come back and let's look at a way that would be more efficient and a way that would have less time for you to have to manage and less things for you to have to manage. So we'll come back to our general ledger, come back to our All tab, and under the statistical journals entry, we'll choose recurring statistical. We have a couple here already created, and we'll come here for head count, and let's look at this one really fast. Again, it's the same as entering a manual entry. Here we are, you'll choose your journal. We've chosen our statistical entries journal. We'll put a description for what exactly we're tracking here, and in this case, it's our stats for employee head count. And then down in the entries, again, we'll choose which account that you're wanting to track. And again, with the increase here, because we're putting in basically a beginning balance for this account, we'll just add a number, and we've just added 300 as a figure there. We've chosen our location for USA 1 and given another description in the memo. And so that's basically how you would set up manually enter a statistical entry. But here comes the recurring part. We'll set a schedule for this. And under the schedule, you set a start date. And then how often or how long actually you want it to run. You can choose never and it'll run in perpetuity, or you can have it stop after a certain number of occurrences or set a particular end date. And in this case, we'll keep it on never, so it'll never end. And then how often do you want it to run or repeat by? And so again, you have some options here. You have none, days, weeks, months, and years. And so we've chosen to repeat every month and by every 1 month. So every month this will occur. And then you can check or uncheck this box. We'll put it at the end of the month. And so basically this will fire off a process that will go in and look in your employees module, and it'll track how many employees you've either added or lost over that month time. And so then that's it. That's the simplicity of this. Is it's very easy to create an account. It's very easy to create a journal, and even easier to set up a recurring process. So that's something that you don't have to keep track of on a day-to-day basis. That data is actually pulled out, extracted for you, and lives here in your journals. And so we've done the creation, we've done the created journal, we've created the recurring process. So now let's go in and actually leverage some of the data that we have at our fingertips, and let's create a report that will show us how we can use this statistical data. And so what we're going to do, we're going to create a report for payroll and related payroll expenses per hour for a company. And so let's go in and look at the actual accounts that we're going to be using to create this report. So we'll come back to our general ledger, and we'll go to our account groups here under financial report structure. And here's our list of account groups. And what we'll go ahead and do, we'll go ahead and choose payroll, and we'll filter this out. This is the account group that we're going to use for our financial data. And so this is payroll and related expenses. It's a group of account groups. And we can go in and look and see that this group of account groups are all of these payroll and payroll related expense account groups, all rolled up into this nice neat package of payroll and related expense. And so this is all of our financial data. And then what we'll also need is our statistical data. So we'll filter this again by hours, and we've come down here and we'll check out this statistical account group called hours worked. And if we go into this group, we'll see that we have these statistical accounts all rolled up into this one account group called hours worked. Again, this is hours taken from timesheets. Again, an automated process. So we have hours, whether they've been billable or non-billable, utilized or non-utilized. And so all of these are rolled up into this one group. And then finally, we'll need a computational account group to be able to divide our hours here from our expenses. And so we'll come back to payroll. We'll filter again. And here we've created already account group, computational account group called payroll expense per hour. And we'll just look at the formula for this one really quickly. And here we are, we're going to divide our financial data, payroll and related expense, divided by our hours worked. And that's it. Those are our three account groups that we'll be using to create our report. And so let's get into it and create our report. So we'll come back to our applications menu. We'll go to reports. Here, we'll go to Report Center. And in Report Center, we'll actually create a new financial report. So we'll come up here on the right, create a new report. And what we'll do is we'll just title this Payroll Expenses per Hour. We get our report a title, and we'll come here, and in our rows, we'll add our account groups. So we'll first add our payroll and related expense account group. This is our financial data. Then we'll add our hours worked. This is our statistical data. And then again, we'll add our computational account group. And now we have our three account groups in our rows, and we'll hit OK. We'll go ahead and collapse these up, make it a little easier to read. Once we build our report, we'll set this hours worked from detail to summary. Now we'll move on to our columns tab. And in our first column, we have our account names. And so what we want to do is we want to look in the last 3 months of 2019. So the last quarter of 2019 to see how this data has changed over the last 3 months. And so we have our account name column, and this is our first actual data column. And we'll add 2 more columns to the right of this for the last 3 months of 2019. And so we'll set our as of date, so the last day in 2019. And we'll come to our column 2. We'll offset this date by 2 periods, giving us October's information. And then we'll come here to column 3, and we'll offset this by 1 period to give us November. And then finally, we'll leave the 4th column as is to give us December's data. And we'll just clear the name of that column out. And now, because this is a multi-entity organization, we'll go ahead and have to select the location. So let's do that very quickly here. We'll just choose USA 1. And then lastly, we'll format it just to make it a little cleaner to read. We'll come to rows and totals. We'll clear out our underlined totals here, so it won't get so busy. So now we have our rows, our payroll, our related expense, our financial data, our hours worked, and then our payroll expense per hour, our computation. We have our columns where we will track this data across the last 3 months of 2019. So we're all set. We'll preview. We'll run our report. And here we are. We have our payroll expense per hour report in US dollars. You can see in the month of October, November, and December for 2019, we have our financial data, expenses that incurred for each one of these months, the number of hours worked in each one of these months, and then the price in US dollars of expense per hour for each one of these months. And that's it. That's just a little example of how you can use financial or your statistical account and financial reports to give you that little extra bit of insight to help you and your organization run it more efficiently and effectively. And so with that, I appreciate your time, your attendance, and I'll hand it over to Martina.
Today's session with Chris, in conjunction with Chris, is some reporting tips and tricks for reports and dashboards. All right. So what we're going to do today is create a budget analysis report from an existing statement of activities report. So with that, we'll be duplicating an existing report, and we'll be adding a budget and variance column, as well as changing a reporting period to trailing 1 year. And then also we'll be expanding those particular periods by month. So let's get started. So here I am in a not-for-profit organization, Mission Peak, and we want to begin with the applications drop-down, going to reports, and selecting and going into our financial reports. Here I'm going to choose the statement of activities. So what I'll do is I'll click Edit. And what I like to do when I duplicate a specific report is I like to actually copy the report name. So I'm going to do a Control-C before I actually hit duplicate. So I want to take the format of this specific report and use it in another report, again, adding budget and budget variance column. So I'll hit duplicate, Control-V, and then what I'll do is I'll add the budget analysis trailing 1 year at the end of it. And I'll click OK here. Notice here, I have a statement of activities, budget analysis trailing 1 year. Okay, so this is the actual report I want to work in and I want to edit. With that being said, I'm going to go ahead and edit. So I have the report information, okay? We do have 2 drop-downs here for report type and report audience. This is very helpful if you come into this reports, financial reports listing, and you want to find a specific report, you can actually, filter by a report type or a report audience. So what I'll do here is I'll do a report type, analysis for the budget, and I'll keep it as the report audience for finance. I'm a creature of habit. I like to save my work kind of as I go. So I'm going to hit save here at the top right. I'll come back to this listing here. I'll go ahead and refresh this. And you'll notice here now I have analysis budget as a report type. Just kind of a trick that'll help you find your specific reports in a more efficient way. So coming down to rows, so the rows are basically intact. I have my selected account groups that I want to do the budget analysis with. I'm going to come into columns. So currently, column 1 it consists of the account name. You can change to include the account name, the account number, or account number and name. Okay, so that is a tip if anyone is new to the organization and they're not familiar with your account structure. You can do an account number and name. Okay. Column 2. So here in column 2, we do want to keep actuals as a column type, right? Because we do want to do a comparison of actuals to budget. So here I'll leave the column type as actual. I will change this reporting period to trailing 1 year. It's kind of down toward the end here, trailing 1 year. Now notice I have the as of date is 12/31/2021. So as of that, trailing 1 year is giving me January through December. I will add a column title of actual. All right. And then I did talk about expanding this information by month. So I want to come down to this expand by, and I want to expand by time period in months, and I want to set. Below here are some other formats you can choose. Number, you can actually choose to add in a user-defined book, and then there's some display and report output if you need conditional highlighting or color scale or anything like that. Again, I'm going to hit save. Now I want to copy this column. So I'm going to come up to column 2, and I'm going to add a column to the right. What this does is it will copy exactly the formatting if this is to remain as actuals. However, I don't want this column type to be actuals no longer. I want this to be actually the budget. So I'm going to come down to the column type drop down and choose budget. This will give you a list of budgets that are currently in your system. I'm going to keep it at operating budget. Again, because I changed the column type to budget, kind of puts it back to the default. So I'm going to need to actually select the reporting period again. Here, column title will take on the budget name. You can choose to edit this if you prefer. But again, I want to expand this. So I'm going to expand by time period and by months. And set. Again, these are the same. I save it. Last but not least, I want to add a variance column. So I'm going to come to column 3, add a column to the right. Again, I'm going to come to the column type, and in this case, I'm going to do budget minus actual difference here, using the same budget that I used in column 3. Come here and do trailing 1 year, expand by time period, expand by months, go ahead and set that and save it. Last but not least, we want to see this, right? So you have some options for previews. You have the live report. You also have the ability to do a printed version in the PDF format or even Excel. I'm going to choose the live format. And as you can see, you're looking at month ending January 2021, okay, for actuals budget and your budget minus actual, your variance. And if I scroll all the way over here, don't need to make people dizzy here, but coming over all the way to 12/31/2021. So that is the report. Again, I simply took an existing report and transformed it into something that I can do a budget analysis with. Now, one of the other things I want to mention is, say you wanted to put this on a dashboard. So to do that, you can simply come into next steps. And we have this what's next, add this report to a dashboard. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And I am going to actually choose, I did create a dashboard folder. I'm going to put this into budget analysis and do statement activities, budget analysis. Click OK. And it'll note that the report has been added to your dashboard. So this is a kind of neat little trick you can do while you're in Report Writer. So to take a look at that, we can come into Reports. We can go into Dashboard and come into Budget. And I put that into the Budget Analysis folder. So you'll notice that it's looking at the actual live report. So the report that we just saw in the Report Writer is now on a dashboard. All right. So say you weren't in the actual report itself and you wanted to add this report to another dashboard. Say the controller loved that report and said, you know, I really need that on my dashboard. I'm going to go ahead and do Budget Analysis Controller. Using this plus sign, you can do the same. Yes, it's a little easier when you're in reports, but here we have the ability to actually go to the component type report. You can choose your report source. In this case, we're going to leave it at financial report. Anything with the red asterisk, we know is a required field. I will choose this budget analysis trailing 1 year because it is required. And just as a note, the report view we can keep as live or snapshot. Snapshot is is used mostly if you're doing a presentation for board members, right? You don't want the report to keep changing your numbers because live means live. So if you are making changes in the system, the report, as the report changes data, the actual dashboard will change data as well. I'm going to go hit save. And now you'll see that now the controller has this budget analysis trailing 1 year as well. So that concludes my section of the reports, tips, and tricks. And I'm going to hand this back over to Marion.
Well, thank you for that wonderful presentation, Chris and Martina. We really appreciate that information. And thank you to all of you who joined our session, Leverage the Power of Statistical Accounts and Reporting, Dashboard Tips and Tricks session. Thank you. Bye-bye.